Face. Good boy. Welcome to Crimson Guitars and welcome to episode 193 of the Guitar Builders Basics video podcast with his tips, tricks and training from me, Ben Crow, at Crimson Guitars in the UK. Alright, this question today is from Strat Attack 13 on YouTube, and he says, I am going to paraphrase this. He is commissioning a custom Strat neck from a local person. He wants a 87 to 98 Clapton Strat shape with a more pronounced V rather than the newer one or a standard C, etc. But he doesn't like the... Okay, I'm going to stop paraphrasing. Here we go. I like the look of maple more. The Rosewood looks way more at home on a relic. He's having a relic. Comments below on the the pros or cons of relicking a guitar. The pros and cons of it on a relic grew on me a lot. Clapton only uses maple boards though. I know Rosewood is supposed to sound and feel different, but is there any way I could get the feel and sound of a maple board with the looks of a Rosewood one? I was originally thinking Ebony, of course, but Ebony doesn't get a finish, so it feels like a tighter grained Rosewood. Then I was looking at roasted maple because at least it's darker, but that is a different feel as well. Any recommendations, please? Okay, essentially sound. Tonewood. Tonewood. I could keep that up forever. In an electric guitar, does the wood affect the tone? Yes, to a certain extent, but a hell of a lot less of an extent than most people believe. Because it's nice to believe these things and comforting, but... Okay, so in my opinion, based on building 150 plus guitars, I've been saying 150 guitars for at least the last 4 years, so what? Lots, 170, say. I've built a lot of guitars. In my opinion, a fretboard on an electric guitar really won't affect the sound. It really won't. You will not be able to hear it through an amp. Seriously. Ebony versus Rosewood versus maple. I'm sorry, unless you've got an aluminium fretboard or, and I'm sort of, spoiler alert, or possibly a resin fretboard, something like that, really properly, seriously dense, or the opposite, a balsa wood fretboard, you're just not going to hear a difference in the sound of the guitar. Excuse me. Quick definition of tone. It includes sustain, so how long the note will ring out. And that's something, if you discount sustain, then there won't be a difference. It definitely does affect how long the note rings, though. It's just the size of the fretboard is so minuscule in comparison to everything else going on. We're not that sensitive. Our ears are not that sensitive, period. Comment on that. Okay, now, and I know this makes me slightly unpopular actually, but I don't care. It's pretty much the truth. I mean, it's something we can't really prove. I started talking about this with a local university, and we were going to design experiments and all that jazz. And he ended up saying, you know, you're never going to change people's minds. So why don't we just develop a fake wood to use? It sounds like wood. Sounds like wood. Anyway, so the first half of the question was, how do I make it sound like a maple board and look like a rosewood board, but also feel like a maple board? The feel is the easy bit, okay? You want to feel like a maple board, lacquer it. Period. Done. Dusted. if you've got a particularly porous rosewood, or if you're going, you mentioned roasted maple there for a second. Roasted maple is open pored. Everything that can be heated up and extracted out is and gone. So it feels more open pored than standard maple, for one. It's lighter. It is nice and resonant and very, very, very cool and pretty wood, but it's open grained, in my experience. Now, I said spoilers earlier when I was talking about resin, and that is what I would suggest. I would suggest take an ebony or take a rosewood, and if you do believe that the density of the maple versus the relative lack of density in comparison of rosewood, if you believe that that makes a difference to the sound, then it's an easy fix. If you think, why am I talking like that? If you think that making a vacuum chamber, filling it with resin, putting a fretboard in the resin, sealing it all off, getting cables and things in a vacuum pump, making sure that the resin doesn't go into the vacuum pump, so you might need to make a double chamber. I haven't quite, that some people do, some people don't. And then you pull all of the air, you have to put weights on the fretboard so that it stays underneath the resin. And it's a special resin that I'm not entirely sure where I can find it in the UK, but I really want to do this. And essentially, you're infusing your fretboard with resin. You can do it less effectively using super glue, possibly. Water-thin super glue done from both sides of the fretboard will sink into all the pores and will fill them. And you will add 20 or 30% or more to the density and the weight and the solidity of the fretboard, thus hopefully fulfilling the requirement of making the wood physically more like maple. Okay, so that is the one thing. If you believe that such a small piece of wood can affect the sound audibly through an amp and pickups, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so that's one. Feel. As long as you fill the grain, whether it is with the resin or a grain filler or something like that, as long as you fill the grain, spray lacquer over it. In the question here, Strat Attack says, I know it said Shark Attack, Strat Attack says, I thought about using ebony, but ebony isn't finished. Why not? I've seen ebony with highly polished wax finishes on in the past. Seems okay, it feels nice and slick. Why not lacquer ebony? You could even, and here's a shocker, you could even just use a maple fretboard and stain it. Maybe I should have led with that. Maybe. Seriously, you know. So I'm pointing at something off camera here. Hold on, here we go. Try not to trip over something. Somebody glued that down. Every now and then, when I'm not here, people come into my studio and glue my tools down to a bench or things. Somebody's glued down a pot of Crimson's Stunning Stains shots. So, yeah, stain. This is the amber. Mix an amber and a brown. Put it on some maple. And spray it, and you've got something that sounds like maple, if maple has a sound, because it is maple. Something that looks like rosewood, because you've stained it. I really should have led with that. Right now, if I could, I would be juggling those 3 stain shots things, but I can't, and I don't want to end up covered in stain. Sorry. Thank you for watching. If you have anything else to add to this conversation, please put it in the comments below. If you have a question for the What's on the Bench videos, this isn't What's on the Bench. This isn't Weekend Workshop. What the hell is this? This is Guitar Builders Basics. If you have a question for the show, please put it in the comments below. We are starved for things to answer or to ponder and muse. And yeah, I really appreciate your input. So thanks for watching. Click like and subscribe. please consider supporting our Patreon, because that kind of keeps this whole thing afloat. And most importantly, let me know if you've got any other ways of answering this question, because it is all a learning process. I by no means know everything, and it's the way I like it. Goodbye. Just punched my bench. I don't know why. Right next to this giant chisel, actually. So maybe I shouldn't do that. See you later. Ta-ra!